going to have a demonstration of ninjutsu here tonight. Ninjutsu is a very ancient Japanese martial art. And so, at this time, I'd like to introduce Peter Brusso, who is the instructor of this group, and he will tell you about the history of ninjutsu and some of the spiritual aspects.
Thanks, Steve. You all have to try to bear with us on the sound system, which we don't have, so we're probably going to end up going hoarse pretty soon. We have a very long show tonight, about an hour, hour and a half. We're going to show not only technique, but entertainment too. We try to make it all together entertainment. I'd like to thanks to our teacher, who is Jun Nakabayashi Sensei from Japan, and Robert Bussey Sensei from Nebraska. So say thanks to Skip, wherever he is, for having us.
Thanks, Skip.
All right. Now we'd appreciate it if you hold any questions until after the demonstration. Try to remember any questions that you may have. After the demonstration, we're going to bring up all of our weapons and allow you to come up and take a look at it, and we'll talk history or any type of the weaponry you'd like to talk about. Well, we have quite a few. Pardon? Okay. So anyway, this is a crowd participation type activity too. There's going to be a lot of things happening on around you. I don't want you to get upset. No guns are required. Nobody's getting hurt. Okay? So, we'll just all sit back and relax. All right. Start about the history of ninjutsu. Ninjutsu is new to the United States. It came from China to Japan about 1,000 years ago. It started as an intelligence organization, a capability for the Chinese government, or the dynasties that were there. What they used to do is that one army would war on another, they would send out spies, and that's where spying first got started, was in China. Nowadays we see spies all the time, but it all started in China at the time. The monks the monkeries used to be a big training center for ninjutsu activities. Though it wasn't called ninjutsu, it was called ninpo, which sometimes you'll see in the United States, they'll say ninpo ninjutsu. It means the same thing. Once some of the dynasties started to get very, very strong and take over the monasteries and what have you, the people who were in power weren't very favorable when the power went down, so the monks had to flee or be killed. A lot of monks did flee to Japan, and at the time Japan didn't even have a written language, in which they brought across a written language to Japan. That is why, if any of you study Chinese or Japanese, you'll find similarities between the two. You'll see a character, the two characters mean the same thing or very close to the same thing. The monks did bring those over. So, the small villages are where they ended up landing, up in the mountains, to be hiding away from everybody. And at the time, there were a lot of shogunates, which were... can you be quiet, please? Thank you. The monks used to be back in the back country, and they taught their art of ninpo to the surrounding villages and some of the families that lived there to help protect them. A lot of people would come into their villages, samurai, roaming samurai, and literally wreak havoc upon the people there in the village. So what they started to do was to set up their own intelligence organization. They were able to tell when they were coming. They would set traps for them. Pretty soon they didn't like to go there at all. What then happened is the clans, or the families, started to realize the type of power that they had, that they could exert out in their society. So they started to integrate out into society and be hired on by shoguns to protect them. Some shoguns would have them assassinate other ones. So there were a lot of different types of activities that the clans used to get involved in. Each clan, each family, can imagine each one of your own families, or different families, develop different types of techniques, different types of stealth capabilities, different type of weapons. So our clan right now is the only one left alive on the face of the earth, mainly because about 200 years ago they started to die out. There was no need for them. When feudal Japan came out of being feudal, there was just literally no need for ninjutsu. They started to then become the mafia. Some of them went into the mafia activities. But since then there is only one clan left, which is kind of sad because all the techniques generally died with those clans. They were passed on to father to son, never leaving. So we're real fortunate in the United States to have had the chance to study ninjutsu and have the clans open up. It's very, very rare. And I think you'll see tonight, all of our techniques are very, very different, very bizarre at best. As the ninjas started to gain more and more power, their range started to extend, which means that they had to grow with their capability. A lot of the ninja clans used to start running. And, like we see modern day runners now, ninjas would run 100 miles in 3 days, carrying weapons and food with them to do whatever they had to do, whether it was kidnap, arson, sabotage, whatever it happened to be. They would send 2 and 3 out at a time. Just like our intelligence services post-war, post-World War II, you'd have operators who wouldn't know who the other ones were. So that way, if one person got caught, they could only give a handful of people out. Well, a lot of the times you never know who really ran the clan at all. The ninjas would actually have 3 wives. They'd have 3 separate family setups, none of them being wives to the others. And they would be like merchants, moving from area to area. So it was very, very interesting how they started to spread out. Their missions in society were generally intelligence, and that they would spy out on other shoguns or armies and gather intelligence. That was the very, very beginning, when they started to get long-range capability and bringing the information back in, so that the shoguns could fight one another. And if you can tell the battle plan, it's all over. You're just as wise as they are, if not better. The ninjas developed special weapons. They did not have samurai class. Samurai class would be like Mr. Reagan and Nancy. They were very elite, and they didn't necessarily have to be rich, but you had to be born samurai. And so they did incorporate samurai, but after long sets of training. Samurai were honorable people. They were the only ones allowed to carry weapons in the society. They could rule. They could walk into their samurai village and kill anybody they wanted to. There was no question about that. Well, ninjas were thought of as scum. They were the worst things that could ever be in their society. They were the dark side. Many people make a similarity today between the cowboys and the Indians. We're the Indians, the samurai were the cowboys. There is nothing wrong with Indians, I don't think that, but there's a lot of similarities between the techniques that the Indians used and the ninja used. The ninjas could not be known. To be a ninja, you could not be known. Otherwise, you'd be dead. So today, now that we do have ninjas that are able to come out and teach, we generally aren't killed very often. We hope, anyway. The difference between a ninja today and, say, a commando. A ninja was an army in himself. He needs nobody else to complete a mission. He is trained multiple weapons. He's trained how to think, how to free-flow things, and that's the most important thing. So when you come in and realize the plan that you had just isn't going to make it, they altered the whole thing. And they altered it in such a fashion that nobody ever really knows what the heck a ninja's going to do. He's always known for the element of surprise. He always makes a mystic approach to most everything he does. Now tonight, you'll see a lot of our techniques and stuff. It'll be very strange. You'll never really know what happened. But Stephen Hunter, who talked earlier, just kind of goes step by step through it. And there's a lot of action real quick, and unfortunately I have a railing here that's going to kind of block it. But keep in mind that the ninja was designed to always do the unexpected. He would act very funny. He would act sick. He would act very non-threatening, and all of a sudden be all over his adversary. He would stand in front of his adversary, just put his arms down, and the samurai would go ahead and take their best cuts at the ninja. This is very unusual, even in America. So the ninjas used to be trained in code. They were able to send codes to other ninja groups. All in the battlefield, just all of a sudden a code comes in, and everybody knows how to undo that. They were trained in how to do codes. Samurai couldn't figure them out. They were trained in confusion techniques. For instance, if you started a ninja battle, or there was a battle, ninjas would move a whole bunch of fake cannons up on top of the hill and make the general think there was a whole bunch of artillery out there. He'd send troops away, and the ninjas would hide in the ground. There'd be nobody there when they got there. They were always trying to devise confusion techniques. He would, if they were in a castle, for instance, they would start a fire or spread misrumors about ninjas on walls or armies over here. They were always stirring the pot, constantly. They were taught an illusion, where they would appear to be in some place and all of a sudden disappear. Out of nowhere, they would just disappear. One of the techniques that they used to use as a ninja, for instance, if we were hired to come in and assassinate Kit, for instance, we would have been here many, many times, mapping this place out, talking about the different possibilities. One of the things the ninjas used to do is they would find, they would have an escape path where they would run and lead, a samurai chase. And they'd go between 2 bushes and disappear. Well, they had dug a hole and filled it with potash. And at nighttime, you could never tell the difference, and they'd land right in the pot at me, totally engulfed. And then, samurai'd run and he'd disappear. He disappeared into the ground. So that was you can see it's a very simple technique indeed, but if you're chasing somebody and he disappears, and the IQ of the samurai wasn't terribly brilliant, they, whoa, what's this? See a ninja running across the field and run up a tree and over a wall. How the heck did he run up a tree? Got claws on his hands and feet. The claws which we have here tonight were invented by our clan. Mostly they were the Japanese brass knuckles, so to speak. We did have a couple skits using them, but we eliminated them. They just got kind of confusing. But the ninjas used to stand with claws on it, black on their hands. You can't see us at all. And the samurai would come take a cut and he'd stick his hand up and stop the sword, and then remove it from the samurai's hand. Now, can you imagine that? If you're up there, whop, and this guy just stops your sword with his bare hand, or what appears to be a bare hand. The next hand claw smacks him in the side of the head, and that's all he's ever going to remember. But it's a very, very different approach to very simple techniques. They used to learn to use nature. These techniques are called Gotan-ko. Gotan-ko. One of the examples of one of the famous ninja kills uses Gotan-ko, and I'll come back to that. Use the natural elements around you to hide in, or to use for cover. The art of invisibility. Invisibility, most of you heard of stealth or invisibility. Well, that doesn't mean you learn to disappear. You just learn to blend in. Most of you here are dressed in a particular fashion. You blend in. I do not. Okay, so you guys are using Gotan-ko. I am not. So that they were trained to use a lot of that. They would make themselves hang from trees and look like branches. Be in water, make themselves look like logs, crawl in logs. Pit toilets, great one. And that brings up a point. If you were to think about how to get to somebody or to some place, we all have certain codes in our mind. I'm not going to set up a pile of shit, let alone lay in it. Where will you least expect a person in a pile of shit? Well, that's exactly where a ninja will be, in that pile of shit. And then you're not going to go poking in there for a ninja either. He has some degree of security. So, the ninjas were a completely independent fighting force. They needed no one else. Though, many times they did work in groups of 3. But 2 or 3 could get knocked out, or 1 or 2 on a team. Would not make any difference to the ultimate goal of the ninja, was to get to that party, no matter what he had to do. They were also trained in how to be sensitive, to feel the air around them. Many times there are techniques, we have finger weaving techniques, where we come up the walls and stuff, weave our fingers in particular patterns that looks really bizarre. But each one, there are 108 of the finger weavings. And each one signifies a different thing to the ninja. Puts his mind in a different state of mind. We use a lot of mind control, a lot of mind thought, how to channel our energy. Now, one of the things that the ninjas would do is if he came up against the wall and he thought his target was in there, whether he had a kidnap, assassination, arson, or whatever it may be at the time, he would move up against that wall and try to feel the people on the other side, feel the attitude. Many times the ninjas would strike during when their targets were having sex. You got to wait. You got to feel the right moment. And then you make your entry. You got to make sure that they're well occupied, doing something else. Okay, so the ninjas were very well trained in how to be sensitive to feel attacks. As a matter of fact, the class is second degree black belt test in ninjutsu. You sit on the floor, and a master will come up with a ninja toe, and you don't sword. And you don't move until you feel his movement. And if you don't move, he hits you in the head. And not too many people do pass the test, but you have to end up feeling. And one of my instructors, who was a second degree black belt, Jun Nakabayashi Sensei, did this during an exercise, practiced with myself and another person here tonight. And it was the most phenomenal thing, because if you project your thoughts onto somebody, they're generally going to feel you. So anytime you're going to kill or attack somebody, you want to think about something else. You want to cloud your mind, draw all the attention away so they don't get a jittery feeling or feel funny. And I sat back behind him with a wooden sword. And I thought about everything else. And even during how I was going to move, I thought about something else. And I moved in for the attack, and he rolled over. It was the most, and I've been in the arts for 12 years, and you don't see that very often. I can't do it. He can. Very, very good. Very sensitive man. To become a ninja, not everybody that practices ninjutsu is a ninja. Ninja is a title. You can get both rank and title. But the title of ninja is probably the most important thing to ever have. It means you have a free-flowing thought, a spirit, a way that you can't get stopped, an unbeatable spirit, the art of winning. You don't stop. You make it look like you stop, and you completely control the person. You open yourself up and you think, all right, I got it. And they jump in there, and all of a sudden you're not there anymore. It's just a total free-flowing thought. It also means, if you think about it, if you were in a ninja clan raising a child, and you're 17, you're a full-fledged ninja, you're ready to do your first mission. You get across from the samurai, and you start thinking, I don't want to get killed. This is stupid, you know. Well, the fathers of ninjutsu had to prepare the young person in a particular state of mind. All the time, the title of ninja was the most important thing to them. Ninja literally means you're already dead. Once you accept the title of ninja, you're already dead. Therefore, you don't have to worry about dying. You can go in, take care of it, and you're fearless. Totally fearless. And it was a brainwashing sense. It was a way of energy, of flow. When you meet somebody that's really committed to do you some harm, it really puts the fear of God in you. You're Christian, but it really does scare the hell out of you. You can see it and feel it in this person, how strong he is to do you harm. And nothing you're going to do is going to stop it. And you feel helpless. And this is the attitude, the mental attitude. When a ninja came up on somebody, he was committed to take, or had to do. It was his assignment or his death. He was going to approach it with that amount of force. During battle, as I mentioned before, ninjas would start to infiltrate weeks ahead of the battle. And they would come in under disguise as old men or monks, and they would carry their weapons with them hidden. We're going to show you a lot of weapons tonight. That you can see, yes, it's a weapon, but there's a lot more to it than appears. Okay, chains come out, knives come out, very different things. The ninja would try to infiltrate into castles, for instance. He would take on the robes of the army that he was trying to get into. And you know, he's just a commoner. You know, they just used to get a lot of commoners in the army there. He would just act like a dumb commoner and get in. And then they would know when the battle was to happen. Once they got close to, or in the army, or close to the army, they would poison the water supply. They would poison foodstuffs. Now, poison doesn't mean you kill off everybody. You take a piece of manure and you throw it in the water. I mean, everybody got sick. So, you know, you got a whole bunch of sick people who don't want to fight. They're not committed to fight out there. You make them sick with a lot of different other ways. There's fungus that you can use to make them sick. You can lace it in foodstuffs in the officers' mess, for instance. The ninjas would do that. The night before, or the night of the attack, the ninjas would poison any guard dog.